Hey YouTube, this is the introduction to a new series I'm starting, which is going to be on the basics of music production, specifically digital music production. I'm going to be showing you everything it takes to write and record and produce a song all on your computer. I'm going to be using Logic Pro for this series, although I want to make it clear that all of these lessons are going to apply to any software that you decide to use. We're going to do just bare basic introductions to recording, EQ, compression, limiting, reverb, different sorts of modulation like phasing, chorus effects. Now, just to get started, a little bit of vocabulary. So a DAW is a digital audio workstation. This is the piece of software that you're going to live in. It basically contains all of the tools that you're going to need to make awesome sounding music. So for this series, I'll be using Logic Pro. An excellent free DAW to start out with is called Cakewalk. I'll link that down below. But for any DAW on the market, there's usually a trial mode you can use. If you're on a Mac, you can use GarageBand for free. You can use Reaper on either Mac or PC pretty much indefinitely. If you want to spend a little bit more money, there's also Ableton, Pro Tools. It does not matter what you use. The most important thing is to just stop waiting, pick one, and get started learning. So all of these DAWs will contain a set of stock plugins. Now, plugins are basically tools within your software that you're going to use to manipulate your sound. Whenever I make a tutorial that's like how to do X using stock plugins, that just means I'm only using what comes with the software already. So we're making it super simple and easy to follow. This first video is going to be a walkthrough of a DAW and some of the main features that most of these are going to have. And without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So all I've done here is open up a brand new Logic Pro 10 session. When we first open a brand new file in our DAW, at least in Logic, you get a prompt to create an initial track. So we could do a software instrument, external MIDI, audio, guitar or bass, or a drummer. So guitar or bass is going to be an audio with some templates thrown on it. A software instrument is going to open up our software instrument library, which is in this upper left corner here. We're going to start by just doing audio. This is the most simple. It's just going to create a blank track. And that'll be easiest to explain what tracks are. So I'm going to click create. And now we have got a track. You can see there's a little bit of green coming in. That's because it by default linked to input 1, which is my microphone. If I click I, all of a sudden I can hear back my voice. I is our input monitoring button. It's not going to be the letter I in every DAW. In Logic, it happens to be an I. We've also got an R here. This means that this track is primed for recording. So if I were to click our record button, I've gone ahead and recorded a region of audio. So I can use return to go to the beginning of my song and we can listen back. Beautiful music. We're already halfway there. I could release this on Spotify tomorrow. So that is our record and our input monitoring. If we click our input monitoring, we're going to be able to hear ourselves so that we can, let me turn that off. Let's say we're recording a guitar and we've got an amp simulation set up in our DAW. We would be able to hear exactly what that guitar sounds like after Logic has applied any of our processing. So you can see this audio effects here in the track stem. In the track window. The other two buttons, we've got our mute and solo. Mute is just going to make this track completely silent. It no longer plays. I'm using the space bar to play and stop. I'm also using enter to return to the beginning, but we can also use these buttons at the top. Solo is going to only play this track. So I'm going to use this plus to add a couple more. Let's say I can, on Logic at least, I can use Command D to also duplicate. Now I've got several audio regions. You can see only the ones that I click R on actually have an input going to them. So let's record another piece of audio. We're going to mute our first one. Again, beautiful stuff. We're going to return to the beginning. Now let's just solo our first one. Now we can solo our second one. You can see it only plays what's soloed. We can turn that on or off using the big S at the top. That's basically all you have to do to record anything. I could record the entire song using just a microphone and audio tracks. I could grab a guitar off the wall, play that into my microphone, record along. I could sing into it. I could play a piano into it. All you really need to get started is some sort of input, in this case a microphone, and somewhere to record your tracks. Now let's get into how you can make this recording a lot easier. So in Logic we've got something called the cycle, and I can turn that on and basically record over just, we're going to delete these beautiful vocal tracks. Now I can record in this exact session. So let's say I've got some chords here. Let's go into our loop library. So in Logic, we've got Apple Loops, which is a whole list of pre-recorded music that we are welcome to sample from. So let's get a nice synth in here. We'll drag this into an audio region. You'll note that our tempo went from 120 beats per minute, which is the default, to 75, which is the tempo of this audio region. This is based on metadata within this wave file. So that's basically just someone wrote in that the tempo of this audio file is 75. Logic says, I don't have anything else going on, so I'm just going to change it to what this audio file is. That's a nice feature. So right here, I used this slider. You can see I'm lowering the volume. You can see minus 13 dB. So 0 is really the highest you want to go generally on audio. And I might get to that in a more detailed video on volume, but basically we're measuring in terms of negatives here. 0 is called unity gain, and that's going to be kind of where you want to top off. So if you ever see in this, basically your little mix window here, and this, note that this slider matches up with this one here, so we can also change our volume using the slider. I'm going to option click it to bring it back to unity, which is 0. We're going to bring down our volume. Now, finally, the last feature of this little track bar here is this knob. This is our pan knob. This is going to allow us to change how much of the audio is coming out of each speaker, left and right. So if you're listening on just your laptop speakers, this might not come through completely well, depending on what your speakers look like. But if you've got headphones on or some sort of studio monitors, you'll be able to tell that I'm moving this audio left and right. So I'm just going to let it play. Again, I'm going to option click. We're going to bring this synth back to center. So again, I'm using cycling. Every time I click play, it goes back to the end of the cycle. And if I halfway through to the end, it's going to loop back. So this lets you record over and over in a region. You can set up loops. You can basically do this using a cycle. So let's say I want to now record, like, this synth is my verse. Now I'm putting a chorus over here. I can just drag my cycle over and record something new. So let's say in our chorus, we're going to use this again. I'm going to Option drag the file. I can also select it, Command C. Let's bring a copy up to Audio 1. Command V, and then I can drag my file around, and this is basically a time line up at the top with starting at measure 1, ending at measure however long you want to go. You can keep making it longer. So I've duplicated our audio region here. Our cycle has a snapping back. Now let's record a little bit of audio over here. So I'm going to prime myself to record. Now I've recorded a audio file over the top of my synth. And I did this in time. You can see there was a little bit of a countdown, a count in. I've got my metronome set up here. I can turn that on during normal playback. Turn it on during normal playback. I can set it to click or not click during recording. I pretty much always use a click during recording because that makes sure I'm staying in time. Now, this sounds okay. I was reasonably in tune. However, now let's say I want to add some effects to this. You know, whenever you hear a vocal, it is very seldom, very not often that it has nothing done to it. So over here, I'm going to start adding some effects. So Logic comes with a number of great plugins. All of these are come straight out of the box with the software. Anything you buy or download separately is going to go into your audio units folder. So these are cutting off a little bit so you can't see everything, but if you want to put some third-party stuff in there, it's going to appear in your audio units file. This is going to vary a lot depending on which DAW you're using. So let's throw a pitch correction plugin on there. This is going to let us basically auto-tune our vocals. Let's throw the response way down. Let's solo our vocal so that we can hear just that. We're going to turn it off to start. Sounds a little bit more computer-like because we programmed a instant pitch correction response. I've got a full video on this plugin in particular, and so I'll link that down below. I've also got a full video on a vocal chain template. So I'm going to go ahead and throw my BBVox 3 template on here. These are all stock plugins. I've got a gain, a de-esser, a pitch corrector, an EQ, a multipressor, a compressor, and a little bit of reverb using Logic's Space Designer plugin. So let's turn all of these off, play again. Let's turn them all on. Sounds way different. Now, be sure to check out the full vocal production tutorial to get more details on that, but also look out for future episodes of this series where I start to go into a full tutorial on EQ, a full tutorial on compression, and a full tutorial on reverb, and I will start to explain all of those different plugin types and how they work. So now we've got a processed vocal because I've got all of our effects on there in our audio effects window, as well as an instrument. Now, something that Logic comes with is a built-in drummer. You may remember this from the intro. So let's throw a songwriter drummer on there. You can see it creates a new track. We're going to drag this guy to the top. I usually like to keep my drums at the top. We're going to solo him. Sounds pretty good. Now, I will do a full tutorial on Logic's drummer plugin, as well as a separate video on how to program your own drums, use sampling. Just for a quick example, let's make a new software instrument track. Let's use the EXS sampler. Create that. I'm just going to use a default I have. Let's throw this samples from Mars drum kit on here. I will use Command K to bring up musical typing. Now, using my keyboard, I can play my own drums. So I'll go into sampling a bit more in another video, but this is another way. So let's mute our automatic drummer and just program a quick. This is going to sound really bad. Ugh, that's a horrible noise. Let's open this up and learn MIDI editing. So whenever you use a software instrument, you're going to be creating MIDI data. So I'm going to close our drawer here, close our little information so that we can fully see our MIDI region. So again, all I did was I've got this green software instrument region. I'm going to double click that. Now we've got something called the piano roll. So I never really use score. This is going to turn the notes into formal musical notation. This is really weird to work with. You can drag those around, especially on drums. Doesn't really make much sense. We've also got a step editor. I don't even know how this works. I never use it. But we're going to stick with the piano roll. This is our MIDI editor, and you can see a bunch of bars here. So because I used my keyboard, all of the velocity is constant. Now MIDI has several parameters to it, and I'll probably make another separate video on MIDI to go into more detail. But basically you've got velocity, how hard you hit the note, a pitch. In this case, our pitch is different drum samples. So I can change around the rhythm of our drums. I can add several. Solo this. I can Command A and use Q is our quantize. So quantize is going to snap everything to be in line and in time. You can see it slid that one over so that it's right on the line. I'm going to Command Z. You can see it was a little bit off. And when I Q, everything snaps into time. I can Command click to add a new MIDI note. So you can draw in anything you want. Let's unsolo. I accidentally recorded over my so I still had this track armed for recording. So when I recorded these drums with my keyboard, it recorded over the original audio. So I can use this drop down here and go back to a previous take. Beautiful music. Let's open up the mixer. So I'm going to hit X to bring up the mixer. Now I can see all of my tracks. I've got my vocals, I've got my drums, I've got my drummer. All the way down here, I've got my synth. And here we can do things like drag around our effects. I can option drag to copy different settings. We're not going to go into sends and busing in this introduction, although those are very important for mix and certain types of sound design. This is really pretty much everything you need to know to get started. There's a lot more to learn. We've still got automation, buses, grouping, different sorts of sound design. We've got all of our different audio effects to go through. There's still so much more to learn, but this is the bare basics introduction to your DAW. You've got recording, soloing, muting, cycling or looping. You've got a little bit of MIDI, a little bit of audio effects, and I think that's where we're going to wrap this one up. But wait, if you made it this far, I have a special announcement for you. I have a new single coming out on Sunday, March 1st, so I'll be sure to also leave a link down below to check that out on the platform of your choice if you are interested in hearing some of my music. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more Logic Pro 10 and music production tutorials. Leave any questions down below into the comments, and I will respond to every single one. And until then, I will see you next time. Bye-bye.